We should perhaps say something about the title of the talk, because I think when we were in contact ahead of this conversation, you all reacted to the title Curating in Sparsely Populated Areas. And in Swedish it's glesbygd. It has a political connotation. There is actually a definition for what a glesbygd is, but in English it's less defined. And I was wondering if you could just share a few thoughts, like what were your initial thoughts when you heard the topic of the talk? So please, if you could.
Like you said, I'm from the capital of Greenland. There's 19,000 people there, and 19,000 people doesn't sound like much when you're in Europe, but in Greenland it's 1/3 of the total population of Greenland. So what is sparsely populated and related to what? Is it remoteness, or what? How do we define what is sparsely populated?
We can also, I mean, this is perhaps something that we felt that there was some experience that were similar through having this topic, but I think also perhaps we can find other ways of describing it that's not necessarily about the density of the population.
No, yes, I agree. I mean, the English translation adds up to a little bit more than the glesbygd. It's a little bit more limited concept in Swedish. And perhaps if one exchange areas to regions, and then one finds something like a sort of a shorthand for various sort of off-center practices. And of course, I think it's important to, if you start to talk about sparsely populated areas, regions, and glesbygd, one have to add something about, think about along some sort of center periphery axis, and realize that we're talking about also certain hierarchies within the art world, within the cultural system, and so forth. And that's to be an important element of it. And I would perhaps add also that perhaps I would like to sort of speak about marginalized geographies. That's what we're dealing with also.
Thank you.
Okay, I cannot add that much to it, but I also coming from an island and living in a fjord within an island with very, very small population. For me, sparsely populated area, it is commonplace. Like the majority of my island is a sparsely populated area, so this is just how we have functioned. So I thought for me, it just I fit within this topic like a flís við rass, as we say in Icelandic.
Thank you. And I mean, it would be interesting also to hear, since you have worked both, as we will see, at Skaftfjäll, but also now are located in Reykjavik, if you see like a difference between those also in terms of sparsely populated.
I mean, visual art is a field that is sparsely populated in itself. It's not. Is this going to be live and I'm going to get like hunted down by some people? But I would say contemporary visual art is not a mainstream field. So maybe contemporary art in itself is also sparsely distributed, or like it is also not happening within the center, I would say. So I think maybe that's one thing to think about also.
We're all curious to know more about the places where you have worked or are working. So I think we will start with that, and we go to Greenland.
Yeah. This is a picture of the Nuuk Art Museum. It's about 600 square meters, and it opened in 2005 based on a private collection. It has since grown. In 2007 we got the exhibition space that far on the right, and we have about 1,300 pieces of art. We're quite small. We're 2.5 people on staff. In addition to that, we have 3 student helpers who work in the shop or as custodians. So we're not that big of a place, but we're placed in the capital of Greenland with 19,000 people. So this is where we work. We do everything because we are still under Danish government. Partly, we are very connected to Danish cultural institutions as well. Yeah, this is from an exhibition we did in 2021. 2021 was the 300 years since the Norwegian missionary Hans Egil came to Greenland, and that was going to be marked the day that he came to Greenland. And there was funding from the municipality that was put aside years earlier. But the year before, in 2020, there's a statue of Hans Egil in Nuuk. It was painted in the middle of the night as an activism protest about the statue being on a hilltop looking all over Nuuk, like he was being seen as this hero or something like that. And there was a lot of debate, and the municipality ended up taking away the funds. And we had seen this marking of the day as a possibility to talk about what is how does his arrival to Greenland still affect us today, and what has history shown us? Where are we now? And there were so many things we could have put into dialogue or into debate or something like that. And we were quite frustrated with the municipality's decision, even though we're under the municipality. And a lot of things we do are based in frustration. We're frustrated when a debate is so goes to extremes, and there's no middle ground, there's no gray area. When that disappears, we get frustrated, and then we want to address it in some way. And then we did this exhibition in 2020 about Hans Egil. It was about depictions of Hans Egil in all kinds of ways. Because some of the talk was that we should remove the Hans Egil statue and maybe put it away in a museum or put it somewhere else, and some even said we should just push it into the ocean. And it was trying to erase part of history. And if we take away the statue, do we take away the history of Hans Egil? Do we take away what he has meant? So we did an exhibition with this depictions of Hans Egil in different ways. There was a digital collage, there were paintings, there were press photos from the previous times that the statue had been painted. It wasn't the first time, probably not the last time either. And this was one of the pictures we took from one of the apartment buildings in Nuuk. It's a stencil of Hans Egil, and someone has elaborated on the stencil. They made a red heart, and it says bye, which is goodbye. And then it says on the right, elsk mig, love me. We wanted people to realize that if we hide away the statue, we don't take away the history. So if we take away the history, do we also hide the platter, the stamps, the art pieces? I think it had an impact on how we were trying to address the whole Hans Egil issue.
And then we go to Skaftfell.
All right. Yes. So Skaftfell is in the east of Iceland. It's approximately 780 kilometers from Reykjavik, and it's in a fjord called Seyðisfjörður. This is the fjord. The mountains are quite high and they're very close by the town. The inhabitants is 650 people. Now we are looking at Skaftfell, which is the house. It's a 3-story timber house. It has a gallery space of like 150 square meters on the middle floor. The ground floor is a restaurant, bistro, and then the top floor is a residency, or the artist apartment, as it was called. It was founded in 1998 and is celebrating this 25th anniversary this year. Okay. This was a 5-year collaboration project, and it followed. I was working here for 7 years, and it followed me for 5 years. It was 7 partners that took part that participated in this, and it was coordinated by HIAP. There was another institution in Finland called Mustarinda. There was the Scottish Sculpture Workshop. There was GRAD, CERDI in Serbia, UTempus in Lithuania, and CAN in Catalonia. And we were the smallest partner, hence we had the least amount of everything. But I had, like, this project took me to a lot of different places, and that really opened my eyes to this, like, contemporary art can be practiced anywhere, no matter where you are really located, if you have the funds and the resources and passion. So I was able to invite 3 artists in this project. One was Icelandic, Ráðhildur Ingadóttir. She was already working with us at the time as an honorary artistic director, but she came and just on board with this project as an artist. Then there's a German artist, Kati Gausman, and a British artist, Richard Skelton. And when I was developing how we would participate in this project, I had been welcoming a few residency artists, and I realized it would be such a luxury to get people more than once. So I put it as a term that they would come twice, first for 1 month just to settle, and then later, like 1.5 years later, for 2 months, and then they could really work. We focused a lot on geology in our part of the project. Really map out ecological practices by artists was like the easiest way to talk about this project, and there were 25 artists, and it had all of the institutions involved except for one had residency artists, and the most fruitful part of it was all of the dialogues, all of these settings where you would meet colleagues and you can speak and you can share and you could talk about what was the most urgent to you or urgent to them. Yeah, and I just wanted to mediate this project instead of some other projects that were maybe more typical, is because you can participate in big projects even though you're an art center with 3 part-time employees. It's a lot of work. I mean, I had to, of course, coming from a small community or small island where we have lots of hats, and you just had to change them. And sometimes you needed to dress down and scrub some floor or something, and then sometimes you needed to dress up and stand in front of a crowd and be articulate.
So we continue to Karasjok.
Well, yes, I'll start in Karasjokka, with the Sami Daidagovdars, the Sami Center for Contemporary Art. You can, that's a very poor map, but you can see that there's a faint blue spot in the middle where of the Finnmark region where Karasjok is located. Karasjokka, to begin with, is I think one of those wonderful sort of paradoxical communities that you find, and as we're talking about this region, it's sometimes termed the capital of Sápmi, for some reasonably so. For example, it houses the Norwegian Sami Parliament, and the Norwegian Sami Parliament being certainly the most well-funded and well-developed of the 3 Sami parliaments in Sweden, Finland, and Norway. The municipality has, I think, 2,500 people or so. The Sami Center for Contemporary Art was actually founded in 1986, I think, and then it was called in English, the Sami Artist Center, in Norwegian, the Samisk Kunstnärscenter. But the Sami name, Sami Daidagovdas, was there from the beginning and has not changed. And Sami Daidagovdas really means Sami Art Center, not artist, but art center. The Sami Artist Center functioned as a kind of founded by the Sami Artist Association. It functioned as a gallery, member gallery, more or less, for the Sami artists. And with the Sami Center for Contemporary Art being established, it was shifting into a konsthalle, into a konsthall, an art gallery, if you speak in Anglo-Saxon terminology. Top of the world was the inaugural exhibition in the new Sami Center, and the glass pieces that you see in front is a work of Monica Edmundsson. That was also a collaboration with a dancer that performed scarily vividly in and among those glass pieces. And the center, I think, in terms of audience, I mean, the purpose of this center, and this is the name, the Sami Center for Contemporary Art, the main purpose is to support, develop, sustain the work of Sami art and the work of Sami artists. So in that sense, our first address is to the local community of Karasjok, being a Sami community, and the second address, one could say, is Sápmi at large, being, of course, a region that extends over four nations and extending very far south in both Sweden, Finland, and Norway. But moreover, after having sort of addressed the Sami community in that sense, the center also served as a hub for developing networks with the art world at large, being a Norwegian institution in Norway, and being part of the sort of regional art centers network. This was one first sort of circle of networking. So the center also then developed a program of co-curating or traveling exhibitions that would travel to other regions, and in addition served also as a kind of a resource for other projects nationally or internationally that would and in a way to support the Sami artists being able to be recognized and be exhibited in various contexts.
I think this is important that you bring this up, how you kind of turn to the local audience, because this is, as I hear, is very important for all of you, but also then you work a lot with collaborations with international projects, and so how you kind of balance this these two, like that can be in terms of audiences two quite different audiences, I imagine. Could you perhaps say something, Hanne or Tinna, about how you think about this?
Well, we also work very. The exhibitions we do, we always begin with: is it relevant for the people in Nuuk? Is it relevant for Greenland? We are a museum under the municipality, and the things we do have to be for the locals. If it's for the locals, it gains more authenticity, and we feel like as a museum, it's our obligation to work with this way of curating, with this way of collaborating, and this way of doing exhibitions, because we exist for the locals. So we always begin with that. So other audiences are interested in what is for the locals, because that's where authenticity comes in.
It takes a team, of course, and we're constantly in dialogue with employees of the art center, and sometimes we had the council that was also advising us, or we had the person that was an advisor for us, or the board. And then, of course, you need to fundraise all of these things, and some things were not able to fundraise, so they didn't happen. So it's a long process to make a program, and I think still I always first thought, is it interesting artistically? I had the fortune of being an independent art center. There were nobody above me except my board, and I could convince them, you just gave them enough information and they're good, yeah? So I'd always tried to do that first. Like, is there like frictions, artistic nuances or something interesting there? And then you start to think about, but is it interesting in this context, kind of? And then you thought of and then can we facilitate this? How big is this project? Does this need years of fundraising? Do we have equipment? Do we have staff? So it is I don't know, you have so many threads when you're thinking about exhibitions throughout the year. And it just, sometimes they happen very easily and sometimes they don't. So luck and magic, I think, is a big part of it.
I also think that I think it's very important to respect the right to culture in whatever context you're working in, and then of course one has, and in that sense one has to realize, exactly, a smaller community also has the right to its experience, even if the audience in numbers is not comparable, of course, to other larger communities. And then also it's also this aspect that the actual participation in a smaller community might comparably in terms of might actually be larger than in the centers, and that's also of course a factor to think when you are asked to count the heads that enter to your place. There is an enormous power available in working curatorially in off-center contexts. Because change is never driven from the center. It's never driven from the natural institutions. Change is always driven by the smaller places, by where you don't where you don't pay attention to the hegemonies, the powers that be, and that power that you have in a small institution, where you can move flexibly and address the things that is not necessarily guided by the existing norms. That is a really fascinating and wonderful power.
So I think that's a very nice way also to start ending this talk, that we can, even if it's a sparsely populated area, we can do big projects and achieve amazing things that also, I think, get recognized over, even if it's aimed at the local community, it's also travels through time and to other places.